Good afternoon and welcome back to the third segment of our show as we preview upcoming TV projects in the works in terms of TV series that will be debuting here in Ireland in the coming month or so. And we're delighted to talk about this particular another Marvel franchise type TV series which is debuting on Channel Star on Disney. It's coming out on the February the 23rd here in Ireland. It's called Helstrom, based on the famous comedy sort of books, the Helstrom comedy books. It's been turned into a TV action series. It's some of its cast features Tom Austin, Sidney Lemon, and our special guest this evening, Ariana Guerra, who plays the role of Gabriella Rosetta. And I suppose Ariana, Marvel, it's all the fashion in the last sort of 2 years in terms of movies to TV series to Avengers to all the sort of like. So this idea of Hellstrom, when you heard Marvel, when your agent told you about it, anything with Marvel, I suppose it's something an actor or an actress wants to be a part of. So how did the journey begin for you, Ariana?
Yeah. Also, really quickly, I'm not sure if you said comedy books or comic books, but this is a horror. So it's
Yeah.
pretty dark. It's a little more chilling than like the comedic Marvel Avengers that they kind of add on top of the action packedness. But working with Marvel, I mean, dude, I still can't believe that I got the call that I'm part of the universe with this project. And honestly, I actually had auditioned for Ghost Rider when this came out. I think that at the time they were intending to have Ghost Rider and Helstrom, but they ended up kind of scratching Ghost Rider, and I auditioned for that one first. And then I didn't book that, but I just so happened to audition for Helstrom. And it's kind of the same thing where you have an audition and then you do a callback in person with like a casting director and some of the executive producers. And then you have like a chemistry read, which is basically you and the person you're going to be working alongside. Interestingly enough, we actually it was hard, I think, for them to find our Damon at the beginning. So I did a chemistry read with another gentleman, and then it didn't work out for whatever reason. And then I actually did a chemistry read with two other people, but I never read with Tom before we started actually shooting. So a long process, I'm sure very long for every person, but yeah, it was really intense. And then when you get the phone call, and they welcome you to Marvel, it's surreal. I was like in my car crying. I like called all my family members, which is a lot of people. And yeah, I mean, it's still very surreal.
And I suppose, Ariana, I saw the trailer for it, and one thing that sort of struck me looking at Hellstrom, it sort of reminded me of a sort of similar sort of type of project which is running. It's going on to its 14th season now, a certain show called Supernatural, in terms of the sort of same teams in sort of two renegade sort of brothers fighting demons, a sort of family that's sort of tortured in terms of crime and sort of stuff. Sort of struck me so much similarities in terms of the concept of towards, and we know how successful Supernatural has been. It's been iconic. I mean, to run for 13 seasons, if you got half that amount in terms of your own show, Hellstrom, you'd be over the moon. So when you hear people making similar, comparing Hellstrom to Supernatural, it must be sort of send shivers down your spine that you could be here for the long haul.
Yeah. I mean, that would be amazing. That's like every actor's dream is to have 14 seasons. And people have made those parallels, especially because you have a lot of this like darker demon, bad energies, evil, and then just people dealing with a lot of trauma. And that is very similar to what we have in Helstrom. If we get 14 seasons, I will not complain, but TBD, to be determined.
Yeah. And I suppose, Ariana, in terms of Hellstrom, it's sort of, we see these sort of two outcasts in terms of this brother and his sister, the siblings, I suppose, trying to find their way in society, where every sort of step they have gone on so far in their paths, they've met with tragedy or demise or personal, real hardship sort of stories, in terms of these sort of two outcasts, these renegades are looking for a place in the world, a sort of such. So for them to take on a venture where they've been brought up in this world and now they're trying to dismantle it from the core in terms of ridding it of all evil.
Yeah. So what's the question?
I'm just, the question on it is, in terms of the concept, is we're seeing a sort of a path where two people sort of start off in terms of a bad premise but end up doing good. And is that the whole sort of concept of Helstrom, that the underlying theme, it may be bad in nature, but the idea is to do good?
I mean, the short answer, I guess, is yes, but the way that comes about and for each person is at a very different pace. It's much more complicated, I think, especially when you compare the two main characters, Damon and Anna. I mean, Damon was raised by Dr. Hastings, and he did have this sort of like parental guidance that I think Anna lacks, although Caretaker has tried to do the best that he can. And you can see that because Damon's an ethics professor. He teaches right from wrong, good and bad. Although sometimes it's very gray, I think he always tries to do the right thing. Whereas Anna has taken a much edgier, maybe more controversial route with how she deals with correcting the evils of the world. And I think for the entire season, honestly, with my character, with Dr. Hastings, and with Caretaker, and even with Christiane, it's the reality that there are different ways every person approaches or deals with evil or negativity or demons in this case. And I think you have this group of people that actively want to make a difference, make the world better. But Gabriella, for her, I believe it's that she does that through religion, through Catholicism, with the power of God. With Caretaker, he is part of a separate organization. With Dr. Hastings, she's part of a separate institution. And Damon and Anna have very different perspectives. So I agree that it is this sort of like fight internally and externally from everyone to kind of right the wrongs and fight evil. But it definitely has a lot of twists and turns throughout the season.
I suppose, Ariana, in terms of the trailer, we've seen a good lot about Damon Helstrom and Anna sort of Helstrom. But can you tell us a bit more about your own character, Gabriella Rosetti? What's her sort of backstory?
Yeah. I mean, Gabriella has, well, she is a soon-to-be nun, which is a novitiate. She actually studied at the Regina Apostolorum, so she's an academic. She's very well educated and has chosen to become a nun based off of her own personal experiences and what she has studied. And it's, it's psychology, sociology. It's not just religion. It's encompasses like a very like comprehensive background of just understanding people, to be honest. And I think that's one of the really beautiful parts of Gabriella that I resonated with, is just this sort of empathy and trying to understand how people work. And I think that's why her relationship with Damon especially is one that she is willing to give as much understanding and empathy as she can, although she believes they are very different. She's also she has this like naivety to her, but there's also a lot of strength. I think she doesn't back down, especially from Damon, who is very resistant at the beginning, especially. But she does know what she wants, and she acts as kind of the eyes for the audience, because like us who are watching it, everything that she's being exposed to is for the first time. Everybody else, I think, for the most part, has had some sort of preview or is privy to this kind of world. And for Gabriella, it's all just very new. This is not in her textbooks that she studied, so she's having to kind of learn what it's really like. in application of fighting evil.
I suppose, Ariana, looking at season one, we have so far, we've some of the plots deal with a possessed boy, saving a man, a dying man's soul, a father of the past. We hear just about this group called the Blood. We hear about these yin artifacts and sort of demons. So we get all sorts of mystery and intrigue in terms of trying to, I suppose, in terms of put the pieces together in terms of the jigsaw as we go through season one of Helstrom.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of touched on it a little bit, but all of what you mentioned, whether it's the artifacts that Caretaker is involved in and trying to understand, whether it's the Blood, which is the organization that Caretaker is part of, whether it's the approaches that Damon and Dr. Hastings have taken, and that Gabriella is now sort of becoming invited into, or the way that Anna has kind of managed to fight evil with her auctioneering business. It all of those components, I think, kind of lend itself to be, like you said, just a very twisty, turny kind of experience for both the audience and for the actors. I think each character has this like really cool arc, where it's not just that they go from good to, or from bad to good, or where they're completely naive to this experienced person who has a little more experience. But I think it's that there's this recognition that each one of these components, whether it's someone who's part of the Blood, whether it's someone who is part of the mental institution with Dr. Hastings, or if it's even trying to understand Anna or Damon, all of these parts show that there's pros and cons to the way that everyone deals with these things. And like, you can't just have a black and white response to it, because there's some really positive things that each one of these components or artifacts or organizations have. And interestingly enough, like the goal is kind of the same for every single person, whether it's Chris Yen, who just happened to stumble upon being a business partner with Anna, or if it's Dr. Hastings, who previously was going to be a nun and has chosen like a different route. Everyone still wants the same thing, which is to fight off evil.
I suppose, Ariana, in terms of shooting for the season of Helstrom, I believe he shot above in Vancouver in British Columbia. And in terms of that, was it a 3-month sort of project? You mentioned coming from Texas and being in Texas right now as we speak. Did you move up for the duration of that sort of project up to British Columbia? And what was that sort of like? Was that a sort of I suppose, a daunting sort of experience making the trip up there? I imagine you stayed up there for the whole time, the duration of the shoot.
Yeah. The weather was an adjustment. It was very cold. And I think I was known as the only person that couldn't handle the cold. It was like, which, everyone at one point felt that it was unbearable, but like, I am not used to cold weather. I had mentioned previously, like right now we have a cold front and no one in Texas knows what to do. Like, we don't know how to drive in ice. We don't know what to do when it's snowing. All of our businesses have just kind of like closed down because they're like, our power's out. Like, it's a mess. So like, having to live in Vancouver for 6 months, and it was, the majority of the time was like in the winter, like the fall, winter. And I was, it was really hard. But it's such a beautiful city. I mean, if you ever get to go to Vancouver, I highly recommend it. The people are amazing. Everyone there is so friendly. Everyone is like extremely nice. But Vancouver itself, it has seasons, which is something that I'm not that familiar with being from Texas. It's just hot, a little less hot, and then super hot in the summer. So like, that's the season that we have. We don't see like the trees or like the leaves changing. We don't get to see like snow. And when I was in Vancouver, I was able to see like fall, and I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And then it got really cold, and even in the winter though, it was such a beautiful place. So I was super fortunate to have shot there. And then, we have these like incredible cast members where I get to like hang out and like we get to go eat at places. So my experience was great. I highly recommend Vancouver if anyone wants to stay there.
That's a 5+ sort of star in tour trip, I know, a sort of advisor
Yes.
from Ariana
Yes.
Guerra in terms of Vancouver. And Ariana, just in terms of the working week on set shooting Helstrom, from the time you arrived in of a Monday morning to do the table read, say, of an episode, were you looking at a 6 to 7 day shoot per episode in terms of maybe on-site shooting and then maybe off-site shooting location and maybe a bit of block shooting, etc.? So what was the working week like on the set of Helstrom?
Yeah, I think we had a little bit of everything. I believe it takes about 10 to 14 days to shoot an episode for us. So that's about like 2 working weeks. And we'd work from Monday through Friday for sure. And then we had some Saturdays that we would work. And yeah, I think when we were working inside the studio, the weather was fine. It wasn't bad. But when we had to do on location shots, like the one on a mountaintop at like -10 degrees Celsius, it was at night. It was a night shoot. So, you have like the day shoots where you wake up super early at like, 5 in the morning or 6 sometimes. And then you work until like 6 or 7. And those are fine. But when you have a night shoot where you go in at 5 p.m. and then you could potentially work until like 3, 4, 5 in the morning, those are really tricky. And they always happen to kind of be outside. But you'll see on the show, like, it was worth it. Once you watch a lot of like the action-packed like scenes that we have, which I, to be honest, was not expecting, just because for a TV show, the budget is not like a Marvel Avengers movie, but it's still Marvel. It's still Hulu, and they want to make good content. So, yeah, there was a lot of fire in a lot of our scenes that we had to shoot outside. We actually, one of the craziest scenes that I did was where we had a fire, but we did it inside the studio.
Okay.
So, we had someone there kind of monitoring how intense the fire was, but I think we like, the alarms went off. The fire department had to come. We had to like stop shooting for 2 hours. It was just like, it was a whole mess. But like, again, it's so much fun. Like it's really hard to be like, 6 hours, 12 hours of work every day, Monday through Saturday. It's so hard. Like, no, it's a lot of fun. And like every day is very different and you don't know what you're going to expect, but, or you don't know what to expect, but it's movie magic, baby. So
it's movie magic, Ariana.
Every day was fun.
I suppose you're back home now. You can enjoy I suppose not this week, but next week now, the weather will be back to normal in Texas, and you can go out and sunbathe again in your backyard and turn and take up the sort of heat and the sort of the rays of light. And but I suppose, Ariana, just maybe for the last 30 seconds, we'll turn it over to your own character, Gabriella Rosetti, and she might enlighten our audience why they should tune in en masse on February the 23rd on Channel Star on Disney in Ireland, and obviously it's debuted in the UK as well, and what's in store for everybody when they turn on and they see the opening episode of Helstrom. Over to you, Gabriella Rosetti. Gabriella Rosetti,
Yeah. Guys, I think you all will be pleasantly surprised at how much action we got into a TV show, and the way that the storyline kind of goes midway through is something that is very unexpected, even for the actors who were in it. That alone should be reason enough to watch it. But we also have such an exceptional cast. I mean, Tom, Sydney, Beth, June, Bob, Elaine, everyone is so talented. I'm not even trying to like hype them up. They just are really amazing actors who like gave 110%. And it's a diverse cast, which is, I mean, something I'm always super proud to be part of as a Latina. We had representation from left to right, and I mean, it's I can't speak highly enough about the actors and how much work that they put into, and the writers were so willing, and our showrunner was so willing to like listen to us and give us like the space that we needed to make really great work. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Please watch it. I think you won't forget Gabriella, but especially the other cast and crew too.
Ariana Guerra, an absolute pleasure talking to you today to premiere the new TV series dropping on Channel Star on Disney in Ireland and the UK on February the 23rd. It's called Helstrom. Ariana Guerra plays the character Gabriella Rosetti, and no doubt it's going to be a smash hit. And dare I say, we may have another Supernatural on the cards. But for the moment, Ariana Guerra, absolute pleasure, and take care.